I'm Robert Scoble, and we're at Pixel Core in San Francisco, where a lot of famous video gets produced here in this lab. And we're talking with Market7, which is building software to help all these video producers work together. And we're going to learn more about that right now. Who are you?
I'm Seth Kenvin. I'm the CEO of Market7. I was frustrated by the disorganization and confusion of video production and started a company to make things better.
And who are you sitting with? Who are you?
I'm Shannon Newton. I'm the Director of Creative Development for Market7 and also a content producer myself.
Cool.
Feeling the frustration. I'm the other side of the frustrated coin.
So this is a pretty interesting solution because it helps all sorts of video teams manage all sorts of different pieces of the video, from storyboarding to keeping track of financial, like how much this guy's getting paid and how much he's working.
How many hours, how many hours we said he would work. The story of the company's founding is I was a client of video production, and in that role I found that it was just too confusing for how I was supposed to provide feedback, knowing what file I was providing feedback on and how I had to provide it, who else was saying what, and what was our group consensus. And as I started to look into it, this revealed that like media production is really distinctive, like you said. You know, storyboarding and scripting is very different than looking at footage of post-production, right? Yeah. So when you're building a website, it's a more continuous exercise, or building a document. Video really changes stage to stage, and you have very diverse people involved. You know, someone like me who knows what do we want to make this thing about and what are we trying to accomplish, and someone like Shannon who knows more, you know, what constitutes good video and what's the craft of constructing it. And he's not going to know necessarily at the outset of the project the information I have, and likewise I'm not going to know his, and we don't have enough time to become experts in each other's field. So how do we find, you know, the right interface for all the different ways we have to work together? Like you said, it could be keeping track of time and expensing. It could be laying out the concept of what this video is going to be about. It could be the finishing touches. And instead of having to log into 8 different sites for 8 different aspects of the project, we try to provide one site that understands the different kinds of personalities and provides a comfortable environment for them to work together.
So
I was going to say, it's frustrating for producers that are working with clients, and the client pays them. So the content producer, you have to do what the client says. And without having a tool or an application that allows you to communicate effectively with it, know what they want, and have it in a place where your entire team can see it, you're bound to misdeliver. And what happens at the end of the day, if the client says, that's not what I want, what do you do as a producer? You got to work extra hours, let's work at the weekends, and it's very frustrating.
So I've worked at a bunch of companies, and for instance, at Microsoft, we had a big conference. We had 7,000 people, and we had a piece of video to open that conference, and that video cost $100,000. Yep. A lot of people don't realize just how much those opening videos cost.
And 100,000 people had to have their say.
Absolutely. So lead us through the pieces of the Market7 tool.
Well, so for any video production that most video producers or people that have any exposure with creating video know that the production is basically divided into 3 phases. So the first phase, storyboards, as you mentioned, has to do with the pre-production phase. That's where you're writing the story. You're writing a script, you're developing the visuals, because it's a lot easier to sketch a change in a visual than to go down the path of actually shooting it and saying, no, I didn't want him on the left, I want him on the right. So that process of scripting and storyboarding that Market7 has an application for allows us to, instead of that happening in email where it might be, the script might be a Word document that goes back and forth, and they say, okay, change that word to this word. I mean, because these are marketing professionals, Microsoft, for example. There are certain things, don't ever say that, or you have to say this, or you know, the 7th guy comes in and says, oh, by the way, that was a branding campaign from 2 years ago. Yeah. So for everyone to be able to look at the same script, the same document at the same time through a tool like Market7 allows you to, it eliminates the possibility that you forget something, that something wasn't included, and maybe you're looking at different versions of the script or the storyboards, the visuals. You don't have that Market7. You know everyone's looking at the same script. You know everybody's looking at the same storyboards, and so that's clear from sort of pre-production.
You can even have an artist sketch out, you know, art like a whooshy logo supposed to come in right now.
It could be something really simple and blocky that's done even in PowerPoint. It could be something finer done out of Adobe Creative Suite. It can be hand-drawn. But storyboarding is a great example of where there's often this disconnect. Sometimes I say that video producers are from Venus and their clients are from Mars, you know, and it's been the case that clients don't understand the importance of seeing the content visually beforehand for a couple reasons. They don't understand how complicated and expensive the shoot is. So they, know the shoot is scheduled in the middle of the event. It's weeks before the video is delivered. They don't realize the deadline they're on. They don't realize the expense of the fact that they may be renting a facility like this, and this equipment has to get set up, which takes a lot of time in advance, as we even just experienced a small version of before we started shooting this. So by storyboarding, the crew knows exactly where to get set before the event before the shoot happens, and the client can see it and weigh in. The other thing frequently is, again, clients may be used to documents or presentations and less so video, and when they see the actual video, they're like, oh, that's not what I was thinking. That wasn't the light in which I wanted to present our product or something like that. And they don't realize that it's important to visualize in advance before you commit it to video. This isn't a document. We're like, just rewrite that sentence. We didn't present the product in the right light. Now it's like, we didn't shoot the product the right way. Like, we got to go shoot another day, right? So it's,
if I need to reshoot you and move all the lights, we have to do a lot of work to do that. And a lot of times we don't even have you sitting here because you're off in Paris somewhere.
Yeah, and this thing's scheduled for something else for the next 4 days. And
Now, Rocky and I don't do any of this storyboarding stuff, right? Because we're just doing raw interviews. But we do work together with clients on the video editing part, which we'll get to in a second. Tell me a little bit about the expense part. What does that let you do and keep track of for the client, as you're going through this process?
Yeah. So again, different people in these activities tend to have different strengths. We found, not surprisingly, that a lot of media production people, very aesthetically oriented, and they don't have a good sense. Like someone like Shannon, who may be working on 4 projects simultaneously, he knows at the end of the month, like, what are my revenues or what are my costs, but like, what projects did I make or lose money on is often lost on people. So again, we try to integrate really intuitive mechanisms where you can say, like, all right, I think I'm going to spend about this much time on this project. I think I'm going to use this editing station for this much time. Here are the relative costs of those things. Am I ahead or below projections, and what's my overall cost? How does that compare to my projection? How does that compare to my revenue? And arm the media producer with better mechanisms to understand, which projects are profitable or not, and know how to work with that client in the future. To Shannon's example.
One thing additional to that, just along with that, is like from our standpoint, not even just before the project or after the project, but like during the project, sometimes the scope will change. Hey, instead of 2 days, can we do 3 days or whatever? And to be able to go right into the resource tool and say, okay, what does that do? I add a 3rd day and I see the cascade effect. Oh, that's the bottom line impact. Maybe I can absorb that, or maybe I have to go back to the client. So I know instantly what the monetary impact of some scope change is going to be.
Yeah, all this stuff is stored on the cloud, right? I remember getting tours of CNN 10 years ago, and everything was on videotapes, or in fact, they had robots that would go and grab different videotapes and put them in machines and stuff like this. This video world has completely changed in the last 10 years, hasn't it?
It has, and I think it's one area where we're going to see, more acceleration. Video files are still large, upstreams are still often limited, and the storage does fill up as video is getting larger in some degree. Compression's getting better, but at the same time, quality is expanding, and we're kind of, in a period now where the efficiencies and power of tools to work with video in the cloud are just getting to the point of viability and are going to get to the point of really compelling economics in the next couple of years.
So now we have the fun part where Rocky and I work together. We have 2 video cameras. We've been shooting all this video. We get it in there, and now we're showing it to a client. What can we do there? What can we do as a team to work on that video together?
So in the post-production stage, you can upload it in whatever digital format it's in, Windows Media, Flash, AVI, various flavors of MPEG-4, get it into a web service, call to someone's attention like, hey, here's a video I want you to look at. They're going to come to a player that feels very familiar in 2 ways. One is it's a video player. They can play, pause, mute, full screen. They know how to drag the playhead around, but also it's going to show something that looks a lot like an instant message stream, which is going to kind of be in the rightmost quarter of the screen, and that's going to be comments about the video that track to particular data within the video. So it tracks to the timeline. This is a comment that applies at 3 minutes and 22 seconds, or from then until 3 minutes and 30 seconds. So it's an 8-second span. You can highlight a portion of the screen, say my comment applies right here.
So maybe Rocky has underneath you what we call a lower third, which has your name and title and stuff like that. And maybe the client goes, I don't like the font on that. and they'll be able to highlight
Right.
that and
They
say
can
they
highlight
don't
that
like
portion of the
font?
screen. They can attach a file with here's how I want it to appear, and then there'll be an attachment to their comment. Someone else can reply to that comment. So we can have the whole dialogue, again, in very much a familiar messaging mechanism that looks like Skype and Facebook and many other things you use and feels familiar in that way, but it corresponds to that video file. And actually, ultimately, the video editor can get that content out and open it in their edit environment. So just like we integrate the messaging with the video play for review, we integrate the instructions with the edit environment for what has to happen after that review.
So now we argue it all out, and we all agree on that font, and we agree on the shot selection,
Right.
and we agree that the lighting's all great. Now we hand it back to the video editor, and
We might
and
have
he goes,
100 comments, right? We might have a dozen reviewers, and there might be lots of back and forth. You and I might have a huge debate, where we reply to each other 20 times. Well, we just need, out of the 100 comments, we just need 5 as edit instructions. So what we can do is tag them, edit instruction, and then someone can actually export just that tag filter. So now we get the 5 edit instructions and leave the other 95 comments into an XML file that can be opened in Avid or in Adobe Creative Suite or in Apple Final Cut Pro. And the editor doesn't see the noise of the 95 debate points, sees just the 5 verdicts, right in the environment in which they edit.
So you go to town, and you edit it all up, and then you what? What do you do then?
There's really 3 things that we love about like working in a tool like the Annotated Player. One is that everybody, the client, can argue things out. I want them on the left, I want them on the right. You don't have to be in the middle of that. You don't have to play email tag with these people. They fight it out inside the tool. And then when the decision's finally made, you can strip out the things that are not important as the producer and just send your editor the comments that apply to you. And then if you're working on 7 projects, you're going to forget what exactly was said. You don't have to go back through email. You get the note that says, hey, your editor's finished with it, he's uploaded a new version, and you can go back to the original comments and go, okay, did everything? Oh, forgot this one. So you're not embarrassed to send it back to the client.
And the client often forgets too, right? They're like, that's not what I wanted. And you can be
Yes.
like, all right,
Like,
well,
right
you
here.
put that comment there on that file, there on the
Yes.
timeline, highlighting that portion of the screen. So,
It makes
let's
that
look at
very
our
easy.
budget module
Yeah.
now and see how much cost overrun we had because you told us you documented one thing and then
Yeah.
decided a second thing.
Yeah, like what I was saying originally about the frustration with not knowing exactly what the client wants and delivering something and having them say, no, that's not what I want, and then you have to just suck that cost up in your project. Having to know exactly what the client wants and having a record of that takes a lot of that frustration away. So that's the thing we love.
What was the challenge of building this?
There's effectively 2 challenges. One is we're very multidisciplinary. I don't think we're going to win a Nobel Prize in any single technology, but we have to work with document layouts of content that are very dynamic and structural. We have to work with media, obviously. As you saw, there's a lot of calculation and there's aspects of image processing in our software. So we have to we have to call on a lot of skills because the projects we facilitate are themselves so diversified. So there's a pretty large toolkit of technologies in what we do. And then ultimately, what we have to really be excellent at, besides, on top of the primitive technologies, understanding these different user types. And Shannon, who may spend all of his time in Adobe Creative Suite and in Final Cut, what are the motifs he's used to? He thinks in visual media, and if he's working with a corporate client, that person's used to Microsoft Office, right? And so, how do you find a way that they can each, get something done together that caters to each of their use types? So that's most frequently what we challenge ourselves on, is look at each screen and be like, all right, what does the creative type of person want to get accomplished, and what is it that they're proficient at doing in this screen, and then what's the more businessy person, and then how do we let both of them, achieve parity and work together?
I would expect that you were going to have a disparate customer base. If everyone from a TV station who needs to manage a lot of media, a lot of people, a lot of moving parts, to people like Rocky and I who have 2 cameras. We don't care about the cost so much, and we just want to lay out our video and work together. Is it appropriate for both kinds of teams? Tell me a little bit about the cost.
To a degree, we have costed it so that we can be valuable and applicable and economical in any of those environments, and whether you're, 2 people working with a couple hundred megs or hundreds of people working with gigabytes, that it scales in ways that are intelligent and compensate us for the cost we take on effectively and are economical for you, in part to see where it sticks. And you're right, it is sticking everywhere. And I think that's more than anything an indication of where we are with video today, that video today is something that any entity has to think of how they present themselves with it, and more people are empowered to do stuff with it. So, because of the spread of screens, the spread of edit environments, the better delivery methodologies that are out there, you always have to think of anything you thought of presenting on the web 5 years ago, you now have to think of what's the video implementation of it. So our customer base includes like really top 10 entities in Madison Avenue advertising, in Hollywood movie production, in the Fortune 500, like the largest corporations, in web properties, those web properties most associated with video, plus
like
lots
Gary
of
Vaynerchuk kind of people, or like a Wine Library TV or a small video show like us?
Yeah, I mean, one or two of the main brands in web video are using our software to review their footage. Plus, lots of independent practitioners and boutique agencies. So, any setting in which multiple people have to do some form of communication and coordination about video, we find it applies. When it's geographically distributed, the value kind of accrues. There's certain circumstances that make it really valuable.
And that's a good application there. If you did an interview or you did a talk with somebody, and they still want to prove the message or whatever, this is an easy way for them to just annotate, where you want it to cut or whatever, and you don't have to worry about, it's not living. Hopefully, maybe they emailed Rocky, maybe they emailed you, maybe they forgot to put you on the email. It doesn't really matter. It's all there. You can log on anytime.
Now, do you guys help with distribution? Because distribution's a pain in the ass.
Right.
We're using, we usually just put it up on YouTube now because that's where most of the audience that cares about our kind of content is.
So right now we're taking on a pretty broad swath, focusing on everything from conceptualizing the video, doing treatments and creative briefs through scripting and storyboarding, and on to post and final approval. And there's a lot for us to take on there, but we're definitely, we're sort of sequentially just in advance of then how do you distribute it, publish it, track its performance, et cetera. So I would say that's an analogous space, a very partnership-friendly space for us, but we've got more than enough to do in how the content goes from conceptualization to final approval. And then there are related challenges and considerations like you just mentioned in the distribution and optimization of the finished content.
Got it. Tell me a little bit about the fundamentals of the company. How are you guys funded, and where do you think you're going? And how's adoption? And
yeah, we're funded by individual investors who really come from the most applicable spaces to us. So like people who've got backgrounds as executives in Fortune 500 corporate marketing, in advertising agencies, in Hollywood production, and in the technology industry around us. And they've been enormously helpful. Probably, the clients that we do work with, a substantial fraction of them we got to through our investors and places they've worked or people they work with, people they know. We've dozens of customers. We're being used for hundreds of projects, maybe thousands of seats or getting close to there. And more than anything else, it's really interesting, like we talked about before, the diversity from corporate video production to religion to education and other fields, advertising, obviously.
Very cool. Anything surprising you've learned by doing this that you wouldn't have thought you were going to learn?
Yeah. I mean, look, my bias as a tech business person is to narrow one's focus and get that niche and get that foothold and use that point to leverage out. And one thing that's surprised me in what we do, and even as a founder of this company, I was like, the post-production process, I need a way to get my comment into the video the same way I can put a word processing document in track changes mode and get my comment right into the text, right? That was the singular thought I had, and that's what clients need. And then as I spoke to more people in the industry, I realized, this is part of a broader issue that you've got this misalignment between people thrown together for a short-term project where one person brings a creative perspective and one person brings a subject matter perspective and another person brings a business perspective, and they need to align themselves. And that was one manifestation. So we're kind of getting drawn to this, broader suite of how people work together more rapidly than I thought, because the first itch we scratched, we found hey, there's many other itches that are very similar in other aspects of these projects.
Very cool. Well, thanks for sharing with me what this tool is about, and we're going to try it on our show and see if we can make it work. So
okay.
Thank you very much. Where do we learn more about it, by the way?
The company is Market7. It's www.market7.com. There's a Twitter feed that I'll get more active about now that I'm saying this, but that's Market7, the word, S-E-V-E-N.
Okay. And what about you personally on Twitter?
Seth Kenvin, SethKenvin. You'll mostly find Elvis Costello song lyrics there.
Cool. And what about you? Are you on Twitter?
I don't. Yeah, I'm terrible about.
He is. If you want to, if you can go to Shannon's Twitter feed if you want to see right now what he was thinking in March of 2009. It's right there.
Yeah, I'm terrible about it.
Well, thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.